Hello all of my crafty friends, welcome back to my channel. Welcome all of you to Pretty Pink Craft Room. I'm hopping on with you today to do something a little bit different, to invite you to create a new project with me. I have my instructions kind of written down for myself of how I want to create it, but unlike my previous videos, I have not done the prototype for it. So my idea is to create a 7x7 Gatefold Mini Album. I have some craft colored 110-pound cardstock paper that I'm going to use, and I'm going to try to follow my instructions and see how this turns out. Hopefully it turns out well, that I can use it and then decorate it later, but at least create the base with you today. So hopefully you will stick around with me as we create something together. So because I am using 110-pound cardstock, I brought out my guillotine cutter, and you definitely don't have to use the 110 if you don't have it. It's just what I had in my stash and I was trying to use it up. But you can certainly use the 80-pound or even the 65-pound you can use, and then just layer up your papers, and it will give it a much more sturdier feel if that is what you're looking for. So to create the base, the first thing I'm going to do is cut this down to 9 by 7. This is going to be the back, and then for the sides, I'm going to cut 2 pieces down to 4.5 by 7. So here's one at 4.5, and then here's another at 4.5. And I apologize if the camera is shaking a bit. So that's the 2 for 4.5, and then I'll cut them down to 7. Okay, so I'm going to bring in my scoreboard and score these sheets down so that I can create the base. And I'm going to definitely need some type of bone folder to crease these down too. So I'm going to bring back in, this was the 9x7 piece, and I'm going to line it up on the 9-inch side on my scoreboard. And I am just going to actually use this tool because it's a thicker piece of paper. I'm going to score at 1, and I'm going to score at 8. Why am I going cricket? I don't know why that's happening. Okay, there we go. Get it straight. Okay, so again, I scored at 1 inch and 8 inch, and I'm just going to fold those pieces toward me and crease them down. You might have to, again, if you're using 110 like me, you're definitely going to have to apply some pressure and really crease it down because the paper is just thicker than what you may be used to using. Okay, so it just creates this, and this is the back part of my album. So then I'm going to bring in these 2 sheets that were 4.5 by 7, and I am only going to be scoring them at 1 inch. And then I can fold both of these down and then crease them. Okay, and then I'll bring back in the back piece, and all I'm going to do is apply these 2 flaps on top of each other like so, and glue them down on each side. Apply glue there, and then it will create the base of the gatefold. I'll apply both of them on here with the glue, And you may need to, you can of course use score tape, which is quicker, but if you're going to be using glue like me, you're going to need to give the pieces a little bit of time to adhere, because again, you're dealing with thicker cardstock. So I'll go ahead and glue those down. So after gluing the pieces all together, it creates one large piece here. You can see your doors at the front for the gatefold and the back, and this is the base all assembled. So now let's work on the inside. And so for my first level on the inside, I'm going to cut, again, 2 more pieces, and I'm going to cut them at, I think I can probably cut 2 at a time. It's strong enough to do that, I believe so. Let's hope I don't mess up anything. But I'm going to cut these 2 pieces at 6 7/8, and making sure it's only 2. 6 7/8. Okay. And by 7 1/4. Because I wrote these instructions and did not do a prototype, I am also going to do a lot of dry fitting before I glue anything down, just to make sure that I've gotten these measurements right. So both of these flaps are going to be scored the same exact way. I'm going to turn them on their 7 1/4 inch side. So they're lined up at 7 1/4 of an inch. And I am going to score them at 1/2 inch and then 1 1/4. So 1/2 inch and then 1 1/4. And then I'll do the same thing with the other 1/2 inch and 1 1/4. Okay, so now I'm just going to fold those score lines and crease them down. And these are going to serve as your top and bottom flaps inside of the album. So I'll bring my base back in. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to apply glue to this 1/2 inch flap, line it up at the top. I gave myself a little bit of room, so you do have to center it, because I didn't want anything to interfere with these, with the folding. So it is, because the base is 7 inches, but this sheet is actually 6 7/8. So it should give you a little bit of room on each side, so that you don't run into those score lines. And I'm going to apply this at the top, and then apply glue on the 1/2 inch flap on the bottom piece, and apply that at the bottom like so. So I'll apply those down, and then we will come back and add more pieces. So these are the flaps that have been added. So now you can see how it is coming together. And the top and the bottom flaps have now been attached to the base here. So the first thing I'm going to do is work on the inside of these flaps, doing a couple of add-ons to the flaps here. And while I paused the video, I did do some extra cutting so that you wouldn't have to endure the vibrations on my camera, because I'm using the guillotine cutter. So I'll go a little bit slower in case you're crafting along with me. But we're now going to, again, do some add-ons on the top and on the bottom, the inside of these flaps here. So the first thing I did is I wrote down a little add-on flap to the underside of those pages. And so I have 2 pieces here that measure 4 3/4, and I'll just double check and make sure, 4 3/4 by 5 7/8. And on the 4 3/4 side, I want to score at, just checking my notes here, I want to score at 1/2 inch. So on the 4 3/4 side, I'm scoring at 1/2 inch on both of these pieces. And then I'll go ahead and fold and crease these down. Okay, so bringing back my base, my idea was to add this on this side on the top inside flap, and then on the bottom inside flap to add it on the opposite side, like so. So I'll go ahead and glue those two pieces down. Add that on, again, the inside flap, on the inside of the top flap. I'm just going all the way to the edge here and adding, lining it up and adding it inside like so. And it's good that I use the glue because I do need the extra time to make sure everything is lining up the right way. Okay, good. And then for the bottom one, I'm just going to do the same thing, adding the glue like so, and add it to the bottom of the inside of the bottom flap down here. The flap has been added to the top and the bottom, and the idea that I had was to create 2 small pockets here so that it could have tags inserted inside that would keep this flap down and in place. So to do that, I have it written that you would need 2 pieces that are 3 by 4 inches, but because this is exactly 6 inches, you don't want the pockets to run into each other. So I did one piece that was 3 by 4 inches, and then a secondary piece is just slightly less than 4 inches. So if I put it in my scoreboard, you can see that it's not exactly 4 inches. It's like maybe a 1/16 of an inch less than 4 inches. And again, that's so that both pockets can fit on here and not run into each other. So just like any pocket, I'm just going to score 1/2 inch on all 3 sides. And then I'll miter the edges, or the corners. I always say edges, but I mean to say miter the corners. And that's just cutting off these corners so that the pockets can lay flatly. So it just looks like that when you cut off those corners. And so now I'll just fold and crease down these edges. So now on the top, again, this is the top flap like so, and we added this extra add-on. So now I'm going to go ahead and add these pockets here. I'm gonna line it up to the corner edge here. Just make it as even as I can and lining it up, so that, again, the opening is on this side so that we could add a tag to kind of keep that flap down. So I'm just lining it up before I crease it down. Okay, that's one. So now I have a second pocket here that I'm going to lay right next to it. And so now you can see I do have a little bit of room here, so these pockets are not going to run into each other, and they don't impede my my folded edge here too. And that's, again, because instead of cutting both of them at the exact same width of 4 inches, I went a 1/16 of an inch less than 4 inches, so that when it's together, they can lay side by side without butting into each other or butting into that score line. So now we have these two pockets here, and I'll just take a scrap piece so you can see what I mean. Of course, this isn't the tag we would use, but if you add a tag into these pockets, now the tags can keep the flap laying flatly, and you can add more decoration as you create the tag and, you know, decorate it how you would like to. So that's how that one looks, and I've already done the bottom one. So now you can see the bottom one has its two pockets, the top one has its two pockets, and then when you fold these together, that is your level 1. So now let's do our level 2. So I'm going to open these back up, and we're going to add 2 more flaps to go this way. Making sure that's glued down. So I'm going to move this out of the way for a moment. And to create our level 2, we are going to use 2 pieces that measure 6.5 by 6 7/8. So this is 6.5 by 6 7/8. Just making sure I have it all right. 6.5 by 6 7/8. So on the 6.5 side, I'm going to score that at 1/2 inch. So 6.5 side, I'm going to score at 1/2 inch. And do the same thing with the other one. And then I'll fold and crease these down. Okay, so let me bring my base back in again, and it's fully opened just so that you can see. And then we open these flaps. So I'm going back down to the very back, the base of it. And the idea was that we would add these like so on the side here. I think that's what we had in mind. I feel like I wanted to have a gusset here too of 1/2 inch to give more space. Yes, that is right. Okay. And this is why you do the dry fitting. So I'm going to take this back again, and I'm going to not only score at 1/2 inch, I'm also going to score at 1 inch because I do want a 1 inch gusset there as well. Okay, so I've already scored at 1/2 inch, and I'm still on that 6.5 inch side, so I'm now going to score at 1 inch. So now this will give me the 1/2 inch flap that I need to glue down, but also it'll give me another 1/2 inch of a gusset so that I have space to, you know, layer and add, you know, the pictures and the room. You want to have that. So I'm going to take the second piece and do the same exact thing. I've already scored it at 1/2 inch. I'm just going to do another score line at 1 inch, and I will have to adjust my instructions to include this adjustment because I do not have that written down. I'm so glad I caught it before I glued anything down though. Okay. So now I will bring the base back in, and so now you can see I want to add this here so that there is, I want to add by adding the glue here, putting it on the base, but I will still have this 1/2 inch of a gusset room to add more layering and photos, etc. So that does fit in there. So I'll go ahead and add the glue. Again, just adding glue to that 1/2 inch flap only. And then applying it to the base there. Staying away from that score line so that nothing is impeded. And so there we go. Okay, so now that piece is there like so, and I will now add the left hand side. I'm just adding glue here on this 1/2 inch panel. And then I'm going to apply it right here on the left-hand side at the very base of the project. And just lining it up, making it straight, making it in line with the other one. Okay. Very nice. Okay. So now you have these 2 flaps here, and then these 2 go on top like so. Okay. So on these flaps, I want to open them up and add another flap on these 2 sides, the inside, these 2 here. So to do that, I have 2 more pieces for the add-on, and these 2 pieces should measure 4.5 by 7 1/4. 4.5 by 7 1/4. Okay, perfect. On the 7 1/4 side, this is the side I want to score at 1/2 inch. And again, 1/2 inch. And I'm going to fold and crease or burnish these score lines down. Okay, so I'm bringing my base back in now. So again, just so that you're not confused, this is how it all goes. Like so, you open the doors. There's these 2 flaps that are on the top and the bottom. And then you have 2 more flaps that go from left to right. So these panels that we just scored, I am going to apply them on the inside of the left and right panels. So they are just centered on the panel like so. And we will add them as our flaps. So very simple. I'm just turning this to the side so I can get a good look as to centering it and lining it up to the top edge here. So line that up. Okay, so you will have to center it because it is not as wide as the base. So but I kind of like that look. So now the right side is done, and now I'm going to do the left side by adding the glue. And again, I'll center that and then line it up with the edge, the top edge. Like so. Perfect. Okay, so now you have these 2 flaps that open like this. There's some extra glue here I gotta wipe up. But 2 flaps that open like this, and then these pages, of course, fold in, and then you have your top and your bottom like so. And then those are your gatefold doors. So at the very back of the project, I had written down that I wanted to do a waterfall here. I won't be able to glue it down because it requires that you add the decorative paper first, then apply the waterfall. But I'll show you the measurements of the sizes of the waterfall pages that we're using. So I have here cut down, let me look at my notes again here. Just want to make sure I have it right. So I have written down that I needed 6 pieces that are 6 1/4 by 4 3/4. So yes, 6 1/4 by 4 3/4. And then on the 4 3/4 side, I want to score that at 1/2 inch. So I'm going to do that on all 6 of these. And it'll be, you know, pretty simple and easy applying them down. It's just that you want to make sure they're applied down after the actual decoration paper is on there. At least I prefer it that way. You may have a different preference, but I prefer it to be down once the actual paper is there. So okay, perfect. So then it's just, you know, folding the same, doing the same thing of folding these score lines, creasing them down. Okay. So I do have 6 of these, so I'll just show you what my plan is for it. So my plan is, again, going back to the very back of the project here and just lining these up like so, and creating a waterfall effect with them one on top of the other like that. And then just stacking them over and over again until I get to the end. And then I'll have those areas for even more photos that you can add there too. So let's go through the whole thing together so I can show you how it all looks finally, so you can see. So this is the base of our Gatefold album that we created together. These are the front doors. Open it, top and bottom flap. There's a flap here for more photos. There's 2 pockets that I plan to add some kind of tags or something in these pockets, which will serve to keep this flap down. Same thing at the bottom, flap there, and 2 pockets. And then in the middle we have 2 more pages that fold left and right. And then these 2 pages also have flaps that go up and down like that. And then at the very base is where we will add all of our waterfall pages. Should be room for about 6 of them. And we'll add that to the base at the back as well for even more pictures. So I am going to take some time to decorate this, and I hope to be able to show a video of the final project of how it looks, but I wanted to create that with you today. Thank you for sticking with me as we created it. We had just a few little hiccups there, but we were able to work it out, and hopefully this is a cute, easy, simple project that you might be inclined to make for yourself. I'd love to hear in the comments if you think this is something you'd like to make, or you think you'd be interested in seeing what the final product looks like with the decorations. I'd love to hear that too. Any feedback is certainly welcome. And once again, I thank you all for joining me on my channel today. Thank you for this crafting session with me where we created it together. And I cannot wait to craft with you again. So I can't wait to join you back on my channel on Pretty Pink Craft Room. Hope you all have a great evening. Bye.